Hi, it's Damien. Scott's asked me to perhaps add a little bit into the mix regarding telehealth, which is something obviously that's come onto our scope of practice in the last few hours or days. Assuming that you're familiar with the process of setting up a telehealth service, which is just become a lot easier if you're a Clinico user, which I'm not. But basically you need an appointment booking system, you need a payment system if you're doing private patients with telehealth, and then you actually need a secure way of conducting the consultation, sort of, that kind of Skype or one of the telehealth platforms like Doxy.me. I think I've posted some links to an article with a few guidelines regarding that earlier on. So when it comes to actually performing telehealth consultations, I know a lot of people have, a lot of people have wondered how they can possibly help their patients, particularly if they're the chronic disease management patients referred through the Medicare scheme. Just to clarify what my understanding is at the moment is that we're only allowed to provide bulk billed telehealth consultations to patients who are referred under the chronic disease management scheme, and it looks as though that telehealth consult is going to be included in the 5 claims that the patient's allowed to make each calendar year. So I'm not sure what happened to the hundreds of millions of dollars that were added to the scheme by the government. Let's hope that with a bit of lobbying and discussion, that the telehealth consults become additional to the 5 face-to-face consultations that patients can already claim for. So if you're going to do a telehealth consult, like, what's that going to look like for the patient? I mean, first of all, you're going to need a good internet connection, good stable connection. These days, if you're in a capital city, that's not too hard to achieve. But telehealth's been used in rural and remote regional areas for many years, and so we need to make sure that you've got a good mobile service and good internet connection, and that the person at the other end, so the patient, also has that. They're going to need to be familiar with using smartphone or tablet, iPad type devices, and if they're not, then they're going to need a relative or somebody with them, a carer, who is familiar. Let's not forget that most people over 70 have used computers during their working lives, but they still may need some assistance, and I think that it's worth checking to see if they've got someone who can help them out. For instance, if you want to use the camera to either to see them walking or to examine a wound or a toe or the feet closely, then it might take somebody else to actually hold and manipulate the camera to be able to see that. So the other thing that you're going to want to be asking the patients to do is actually to do a lot more kind of pointing and touching themselves. So they've got to hold a camera or a phone with one hand and do the pointing with the other. It might not be easy for them, so if they've got a companion with them who can help, then it's definitely worthwhile considering. Your diagnostic skills are mostly to do with, as well as your knowledge, your eyes and your ears are probably the best diagnostic tools that you have. So there's a lot that you can do sort of diagnostic wise with telehealth by asking people to carry out various tests on themselves to tell you where it hurts, when it hurts, and that's why a companion can be useful at the other end. Let's assume that you come to a diagnosis and you develop some kind of treatment plan which might involve exercises or footwear or even obtaining medicines, antiseptics, antifungals, dressings, that sort of thing. So, then I think at the end of a telehealth consultation, we have to remember, just the same as a face-to-face consultation, the patients are probably only going to remember 20% of what you've said. Now, if they've got the ability to record the consultation, then that might be useful for them. Same if you've got that ability and that you can send them a link to it. I'm not quite sure how the legislation sits as far as privacy and with recording consultations like this, and there is also consent things to be taken into consideration. But either way, after your consultation, you need to be putting down careful notes, and then I think emailing the patient with a summary of what you discussed, with your treatment plan, with a shopping list, with any recommendations that you made for things to get, from the shoe shop or the chemist. And if you then follow up with them, I think, with a phone call, probably 3 days later. I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to claim that as another telehealth consultation unless it goes on for a while. But I think it's just good because we're all sort of testing the ground with this, testing the water. It's all very new to us. Just a phone call follow-up, like you might do after a face-to-face consultation, particularly with a new patient, then that you might just manage to iron out problems before they occur, any misunderstanding before it becomes a problem for the patient. So I hope that helps. We've got an interesting road ahead, assuming that we're going to stay open for the next few weeks. Let's try and see how we can help to look after our patients most in need without necessarily actually getting our hands on them. All the best.